Somewhere out there right now there is an animal living its absolute best life. Completely wild, completely free, no idea what's coming. No idea that in a few hundred or maybe a few thousand years, some descendant of ours is going to look at it and go, yeah, that one. That one's going to live in my house and eat out of a bowl with its name on it, because that's what we do. That's literally what humans do. We look at wild, dangerous, unpredictable creatures and go, what if, friend? We did it with wolves, we did it with wild boars. We did it with the ancestor of the cow, which by the way was called the auroch, and aurochs were absolutely terrifying. 6 feet tall at the shoulder, massive horns, would destroy you without a second thought. And some ancient human looked at one and thought, milk machine. Absolute legend, but here's the thing most people don't realize. Domestication isn't over, it didn't stop. It's not some ancient process that finished 10,000 years ago and now we're just maintaining. No. Right now, today, there are animals on this planet sitting at various stages of the domestication pipeline. Some of them are being actively bred in captivity. Some of them are already living alongside humans. Some of them are just suspiciously friendly for wild animals. And today, we're going to talk about which ones might actually make the cut. Which animals are most likely to become the next dog, the next cow, the next wait, you have one of those as a pet. Let's start with what domestication actually means, because people get this wrong all the time. Domestication is not taming, this is important. A tame animal is an individual that has learned to tolerate or even enjoy human presence. You can tame almost anything if you raise it from birth and have enough patience and enough scars. People have tamed tigers. People have tamed crocodiles. There's a man in Russia with a tame bear named Stepan who apparently loves watching TV and hugging people. Stepan is a tame bear. Stepan is not a domesticated bear. Domestication is genetic. It's a change that runs through an entire population, passed down through generations, selected for over time. Domesticated animals are fundamentally different at the biological level from their wild counterparts. They behave differently, they look different, usually smaller heads, floppier ears, shorter faces. They reproduce differently. They even think differently. The classic example is the fox experiment. In the 1950s, a Soviet scientist named Dmitry Belyaev started selectively breeding silver foxes. He only picked the ones that were friendliest toward humans, bred them together, picked the friendliest offspring, repeated. Within just a few generations, something wild happened. The foxes didn't just get friendlier, they started looking different. Floppy ears, spotted coats, curled tails, they started barking, they started seeking human attention. They looked and acted like dogs, even though nobody selected for any of that, just for friendliness. The physical changes came along for the ride, because they are all connected to the same underlying biology. That experiment tells us something massive. Domestication can happen faster than we thought, and it tells us what to look for when we're trying to predict the next domesticated animal. So what are the criteria? First, it has to be able to breed in captivity. This sounds obvious, but it eliminates a ton of animals. Second, it needs a flexible diet. You cannot domesticate a koala. Koalas eat almost exclusively eucalyptus leaves, and the logistics alone would be a nightmare. You want animals that will eat what you give them. Third, it needs a relatively calm disposition, or at least the capacity for one. Not necessarily calm right now, aurochs weren't calm, wolves weren't calm. But there has to be variation in the population. Some individuals that are less reactive, less aggressive, less prone to panic. You need something to select for. Fourth, and this one is underrated, it needs social structures that are compatible with human interaction. Herd animals, pack animals, animals that naturally have a hierarchy. These are way easier to domesticate because they already have the mental framework for this individual is in charge, and I should follow them. You slot yourself into that role, and suddenly the animal is comfortable. Zebras fail this test spectacularly, by the way. Everyone always asks why didn't Africans domesticate zebras instead of horses, and the answer is, zebras are genuinely insane. They have almost no variance in their aggression. They bite and they don't let go. There's a reason zookeepers are statistically more likely to be injured by zebras than by lions. Now, with all of that in mind, let's get to the actual candidates. The one that scientists genuinely think is closest to domestication right now is the fox. The foxes from Believe's project are actually being sold as pets now. But beyond that, urban fox populations around the world are already evolving. City foxes are measurably less fearful of humans than rural foxes. They are bolder, more curious, better at reading human cues. This is happening naturally, without any deliberate selection on our part. Just because the foxes that are less scared of us do better in cities. Given a few thousand years and some intentional breeding, the fox is genuinely the most likely candidate for full domestication. It basically already wants to be a dog, it's just not there yet. Now, let's talk about one that might genuinely surprise you, the crow. I know what you're thinking, that's a bird. Domesticated birds exist. Chickens, ducks, geese, pigeons, we've done it before. But crows are different, and the reason crows are different is that they are terrifyingly intelligent. Crows can recognize individual human faces. They hold grudges. They've been documented leaving gifts, shiny objects, buttons, pieces of foil for humans who feed them regularly. They teach their young which humans to trust and which ones to avoid, passing down social knowledge across generations. Urban crow populations are already, right now, developing a kind of informal relationship with humans. They know garbage day schedules. They've been observed using cars to crack open nuts by dropping them in traffic lanes. They wait at the part of the crosswalk where the nuts won't get crushed by wheels, but will get hit by tires at the right angle. Crows figured out our infrastructure and are using it as a tool. That's not animal behavior, that's a roommate. The challenge with crows is that they don't have a natural leader relationship to slot a human into. But they do form long-term partnerships. Given what we've already seen from the fox experiment, selective breeding over generations could probably get us there. And honestly, a domesticated crow sounds amazing and also slightly terrifying, which is on brand for crows. Let's talk about something completely different now, the capybara. If you've spent any time on the internet recently, you already know that capybaras are beloved. They've become a meme, a symbol, a whole vibe, chill, enormous rodent energy. But here's what's actually interesting about capybaras from a domestication standpoint. They are already partway there. Capybaras are the largest rodents on Earth. They're highly social, they live in groups, they have complex social structures. They're already kept as pets in several countries. They are relatively calm with humans when raised around them. They eat grass, which is about as convenient as a diet gets. There's an almost absurd amount of footage of capybaras just sitting there while birds, monkeys, ducks, and other animals climb on them like a living piece of furniture. The main things holding them back are that they're semi-aquatic and require regular access to water. And they're still mostly wild animals with wild instincts. But the raw ingredients are there. Calm demeanor, check. Social hierarchy, check. Flexible diet, mostly check. Breeds in captivity, check. If someone started a capybara breeding program focused on selecting for human affinity, I genuinely think you could have a recognizably domesticated capybara population within 100 generations. That's not very long in evolutionary time. Also, they're absolutely enormous and look like someone took a guinea pig and hit it with an enlargement spell, so I'm strongly in favor. Now here's the one that's going to make you uncomfortable. The octopus. Okay, stay with me. I know octopuses are not cute and cuddly and warm-blooded. I know they live underwater. I know they have 8 arms and 3 hearts and blue blood and they're basically aliens. But domestication isn't just about pets. The vast majority of domesticated animals throughout history weren't companions. They were food: cows, pigs, chickens, sheep. The emotional bond came later, if at all. Octopuses are already being farmed. There are active octopus aquaculture programs in several countries, primarily driven by the fact that global demand for octopus as food is significantly outpacing what can be caught in the wild. Spanish research institutions have been working on breeding them in captivity through multiple generations for years. And here's where it gets interesting. Octopuses have individual personalities. Researchers who work with octopus tanks consistently report that individual animals respond differently to different people. Some are shy, some are aggressive, some are curious and playful. They recognize individual humans. They've been documented squirting water at researchers they don't like. If you were doing selective breeding, that variation is already there to work with. The challenges are enormous. Most species live only 1 to 2 years. They are solitary and cannibalistic, which makes group housing a logistics nightmare. They are escape artists of legendary ability. But the actual domestication criteria, flexible diet, check. Breeds in captivity increasingly, check. Variation in temperament, definitely check. I'm not saying your great-great-grandchildren are going to have a pet octopus named Gerald. I'm saying it's not impossible. And not impossible is the beginning of every domestication story in history. Now let's zoom out because there's a bigger question underneath all of this. Why does domestication keep happening? Food, labor, companionship, yes, but also something deeper. Every domestication changes the human side too. Dogs helped us become better hunters, more attuned to reading social cues from another species. The auroch became the cow and gave us agriculture, which gave us cities, writing, mathematics. So when we ask what animal we'll domesticate next, we're really asking who we'll become because of that relationship. If we domesticate crows and they become household companions, what does it do to our relationship with urban nature? If octopus farming becomes a reality, does recognizing individual animals, observing their personalities, create new ethical obligations we don't currently have? The next wave of domestication is going to be no different from those that came before. Except that we're doing it with more knowledge, more technology, and more public scrutiny than ever before. There's one more candidate I want to end on because I think it's the most interesting. The wolf. No, not dogs, wolves, again. There's a small but serious scientific conversation happening about whether wolves, in specific isolated populations that have been in close contact with humans for a long time, are undergoing a second domestication event, independently of the one that produced dogs tens of thousands of years ago. The idea is that in places where wolves have learned to coexist with humans, the ones that are less reactive, more curious, more willing to take food near settlements are more likely to survive and reproduce. Selection pressure is already working. Sound familiar? It should. Because that's probably exactly how the first domestication happened. Not a deliberate choice, not a breeding program. Just wolves hovering at the edges of human camps, the bolder, calmer ones doing better, generation after generation. Until one day a human looked at one of them and thought, yes, that one can come inside. We might be at that edge again right now, a different wolf population, a different century, the same story. And if domestication is not just a thing humans did once long ago, but a kind of gravity that keeps pulling certain species and human civilizations toward each other, then the question, what animal will humans domesticate next, might have a simpler answer than we think. All of them eventually, all the ones that can be, all the ones that are ready. Because somewhere out there right now, an animal is standing at the edge of a human settlement, looking in, not running.